Welcome to the Gentleman Psychic. The other day, some friends and I went on a social distancing walking tour of Los Angeles surrounding the life and times of its very own Lizard King, Jim Morrison. Author Lorin Morgan-Richards has studied Jim Morrison extensively and even written a best-selling book on the topic. Join us in this exciting adventure.
Here today, we're actually honoring the life of James Douglas Morrison, who was born in December 8th, 1943, and he died in July the 3rd of 1971. So this is to honor him. We're doing a doors walking tour. We are still under the COVID situation that's been really drastic to our society here, but as a walking tour, we're taking all the precautions for this. Now we're here at the Doors Workshop, it's called. It's right off the main street of Santa Monica Boulevard. You'll hear all these cars around us. That's not much different than the diesel-powered cars that would have been in the 60s and the 70s probably. A little less pollution, just a little bit. But this is actually the structure you see here is slightly different. The wood paneling that's here now was not there, but the remains behind it were, and it was a bright yellow color. The Doors office would have led up a staircase on the opposite side. There's two stairs there that go up, and they would have led to the office where they would have had their meetings. Robbie Krieger, Ray Manzarek, John Densmore with Jim Morrison. Downstairs was the area where they would have recorded LA Woman, and they would have had all their instruments out, right out front here underneath the canopy, the built-in canopy there. And because of the great acoustics of the bathroom, that is where Jim Morrison did his vocals. So it's really a special place where we are right here, because this is your center point for the Doors tour. Now we're going to go check out some other places that are important in the vicinity. So Paul Rothchild was their producer for a lot of their records that were major success hits. However, in 1970, he actually left the picture, and so they did all of their production here at their office. And the office actually was a shared antique shop, so they were utilizing that space also for that means. You can kind of see inside here what's going on. It's a little bit dark, but you would have imagined then their instruments inside there, not the plants in the seating. So let's go on to the next location. Right next door to this, importantly enough to this story, was a topless bar. Now, we had a topless bar, we had bars that would go down the stretch of Santa Monica Boulevard on the other side, but this Tesla shop here used to be a topless bar. Jim Morrison would take people that were interviewing him and kind of play along to see how comfortable they would be with that setting. The place was called The Extension, and I think in general it kind of had the same look a little bit, so it hasn't changed a whole lot, except, you know, some of the refurnishing of, it was an Allen Eddy's at one time. Yeah, Allen Eddy's still actually, but also a Tesla shop. Now across the way, we have several points of interest. There used to be, down here, there used to be a phone booth, and he recorded for his highway film a bit where he was talking on the phone, talking about a death in the desert. Now that was there. A little further off we'll go to is the Alta Cienega Motel. That was his famous green room hotel where he stayed when he wasn't with Pam. In the corner, just for general interest, CVS used to be a roller skating rink. Cher was the person that was had owned that, so that used to be a roller skating rink. Just a fun fact for you. Monaco Liquor across the way was where he would go and deal with his vices, as we say. You know, everyone has a vice, and unfortunately that really got to him. So now we're going to head down with what is La Cienega, and we're going to pass these beautiful sunflowers. In the distance here is the rug shop, which used to be called Themis. Of course, that's a good play on the magic of Aleister Crowley, I believe, because it was Pam Corson's clothing shop. She would go to Paris and London on trips, often on the dime of Jim Morrison, who encouraged her to be creative. And she had a clothing shop here where she brought these fancy hippie Asian and eccentric clothes of the time. She was a very innovating factor of LA for that purpose. And above the shop actually then was Jim Morrison's film studio, is his office where he filmed Highway, so he did work there. Now, when Jim died, she had to really wrangle for his estate. He had willed her his estate, but there was feuding with the family, and it was very hard for her for many years after. And it is reported that she actually took her car and crashed into her shop on closing night and left it abandoned. So if we were to walk further down, there was a place, it should be still there, called Belmont, and Jim would often have interviews there. But we're actually going to go in the opposite direction now, and we're going to go to the Alta Cienega Motel. So Jim Morrison stayed in this room. You see actually right above here, right where the cars would drive in, he was right above, at the Alta Cienega Motel, room 32. I understand that it was a green room inside. He would have his dreams and visions in here. Los Angeles was said to be home of the lizard people, which was a Mayan myth that was passed down and recorded in a book in the 1930s that supposedly talked about a advanced race of lizard people that had the technology to build these channels throughout the basin and Pacific coast. In any case, I believe Jim channeled that energy and here in this room became the Lizard King. He's so famous to be known for. This is the original location of the London Fog, which was where the Doors got their start. It's right located next door to the Whiskey A Go-Go, but they were the house band for quite a while. Pam Corson, Jim's girlfriend, he met her. She was originally dating John Densmore, but that didn't really work out, and Jim was able to get to know her better than John. In any case, the London Fog here was not their original, was not the first place that they had their start. Ray Manzarek had a band and they played at the King's Head, what is now the King's Head out in Santa Monica, and that's the first time that Jim got on stage. Now, reportedly here, Jim would have his back towards the audience, and he would be singing. So he didn't really get up the nerve until he became his persona, you know, and that came with the whiskey that we're going to go to now. With much confidence, Jim was able to take the band, The Doors, to the next level. And here at the Whiskey A Go-Go, which was once called Whisk A Go-Go because of laws regarding alcohol, this was the location where they then moved from the London Fog to become the house band for Whiskey A Go-Go. Now inside here, you would see go-go dancers in cages. It would be a really hip scene. And here, this is what launched The Doors' career into the future. Cinematheque 16, which is at this spot that Mystery Books, Pier Books, I should say, was. In 1969, Jim was there for a Norman Mailer President rally. He and Robbie Krieger played a short set of songs, and Jim recited an American prayer at this location. He was known to actually go here quite a bit because he wanted to be known for being a poet. He was a very sensitive person that we think was an empath also, and his ability for prose and poetry was his finest, and because of that he became an exceptional lyricist as well. So now we're going to move on to our next location, which is the famous Barney's Beanery. This was Jim Morrison's favorite hangout for dining, and it was so close to everything, right here in the center of West Hollywood. This is also where Janis Joplin had her last meal before she passed. There is a plaque on the bar where Jim would sit, and it says something about he got up onto the bar stool or table there and peed, urinated. So it was quite a raucous time in the 60s and early 70s. And also of note was the Barney's Beanery is named after John Barney Anthony. In the 80s, the West Hollywood mayor with gay rights activists, came here and removed an offensive sign that was behind the bar. For many years, the establishment was anti-gay, but it's very welcoming now, and so that's a great part of history that people should know about, and how it is a place that has just so much history to it, and you should definitely check it out when you're here. So here we are at Sherry Amour, which is the last residence of Jim Morrison and Pam Corson before they left for their trip to Paris and led to his death there. This is a private residence. The owner actually was a big Elvis fan, but she did recognize the importance of having a place for Jim Morrison and the Doors fans to go stay the night and see the property. People can do that by contacting her, but basically what you see is, if you're looking inside there, you would go up those steps, and to the left is the residence. Inside in the little alcove area is a bust of Jim Morrison that she's put in. But I did stay overnight there when I was researching and writing my book, The Night Speaks to Me, which was about Jim Morrison, a fictional story. And I had a presence of someone looking in through one of the windows, and to me it looked like Pam Corson. I was by myself, so it was quite an intense night, but it was interesting nevertheless. So this is the last residence, and we are going to make our way to the where the creatures meet. That is our next stop. Here we are on Love Street. It's not officially named that, but this is Love Street, where Jim Morrison and Pam Corson resided in this building here around the corner. We're going to take a look at that in a moment, but first let's look over here. This is where the creatures meet, of course. That's in the lyrics for the song. That's the Laurel Canyon Country Store. People would hang out there. Mama Cass would used to live underneath in the cellar area. She also got together a lot of the community. You'd have people like Neil Young, Crosby, Stills and Nash, Jimi Hendrix. Frank Zappa had a cottage that was owned originally by Tom Mix in his old wood cottage. It's supposed to be very mysterious and haunted, but he lived with his family there. He once said that hippies would just generally just show up at your door and then walk right in. He didn't like that so much, and so he was a little more protective, of course, of his family. But that did occur, and at one point, Jim was invited over to Pamela DeBar's house, she was, of course, one of the members of the GTOs that Frank Zappa had introduced all those groupies together to form that band. And anyway, so Jim went over to where she was living, and Pamela was a big flirt, I guess, and she was bending over and doing some sort of acrobatic stuff for Jim. And Pam Corson somehow saw that going on from her window, came over and scolded him. So there was a lot of arguing that would happen. Things might have been thrown out the window. Some of what you see in that the movie about the Doors could be accurate. It is debated. But let's take a look at the house. This house, we did have an arsonist, serial arsonist that came around and caught it on fire. That was about 5-10 years ago. But it has been repaired to what it generally looked like then. The Byrds were one of the first to reside here. It was a label. The label actually had people stay here because one thing, it was so close to Sunset Boulevard. What the hippies would do is they would walk down Laurel Canyon to Sunset Boulevard, and you had all the really cool clubs there. So of course, this was the epicenter for the Los Angeles area. People like the African American group Love, for instance, were seen doing shots, going up and down some of these cool walkways. Let's come over and take a look at that. Check out these really steep inclines here. Now, I went up here once and got a little bit of vertigo, but they have these really cool cottages up there. A lot of cat lovers. There's cats all over the place. But a lot of these staircases are here in this area, and people would have their little retreats. And again, it was a time when people would just visit each other, and open door policy, really. So finally, we're going to go over to the country store to check that out. Let's see that. So here we are at the end of the tour. This is the famous country store, Laurel Canyon. We're going to go inside, get a little bit of more history done, checking the place out, being part of history. I hope you guys do too, and thanks for being part of this.